Good morning. My name is David Schroffnagel. I'm an agronomist at the Fond du Lac location of Country Visions here. Today I'm going to talk briefly on what I've been seeing on the countryside in our soybean fields. So to start off, as you can kind of see behind me too, you're starting to see some of the early maturity beans, our 1.4s, 1.6s. Pretty much the leaves are off. Probably within about 7 to 10 days we'll probably be out harvesting. Fuller maturities like a 2.0 bean, you're probably looking at another week and a half to 2 weeks after that. So I'd say probably by about the end of the first week of October, I'd be ready with full maturity beans if this weather stays as it is. Looking at the growing season, I guess we start off cool and damp, which was a very good conditions for giving us diseases. But then it depends upon what the conditions are at flowering and pod set. Depending upon where you live, throughout our region, we had some areas that were very dry from late July until late August. A few pockets did get some needed rain in between there, but for the most part we had about 2 to 4 weeks of dry weather. So with that said, it all depends upon what diseases we saw later on in the year. The biggest question I always got was, I got to come out, I got brown stem rot or SDS, sudden death syndrome. Actually going out there and looking at a lot of those diseases, what I found was a lot of the plants dried up because of the dry weather in early August. With that said, if you do have brown stem rot or sudden death, the way to identify it is a sudden death syndrome likes the cool wet weather, which we had, but it needs lots of rainfall during flower and pod set, which some areas did get that. But for the most part, we didn't have a lot of excess rain. Brown stem rot likes more of the dry, hot weather. So we didn't have a lot of the dryness for long periods of time in most of the area. If you want to look for either one of those diseases, the biggest identification is interclerosis of the veins. So you look at the leaves and you're going to have dead materials between the main mid veins. With that too, if you're out there in the fields now or even a few weeks earlier, they're going to drop their leaf. To identify the two though, easiest thing between sudden death and brown stem rot, all you gotta do is cut open the plants, and a brown stem rot, you're going to see brown in the pith. If you're cutting open a sudden death, you will not see a brown pith. Moving on, the other two main diseases I've seen this year was early on, phytophthora root rot. We see a lot of your poorly drained soils. Biggest thing with that is you see a complete plant death. It can come anytime from early vegetative all the way through maturity. The fourth and final one I want to address is white mold. That has been the most prominent one this year. And the main reason is for that is we need rainfall, we need cooler temperatures, cooler I mean in the 70s, and we need humid weather. We need weather to keep the ground moist. We had that. We had enough early season weather that got the soil wet, and later season that kept it wet underneath the canopy. Biggest thing when you're looking for white mold, best time is right now. Plants are losing their leaves. If you see any plants that are still holding on to their leaves, anything that's got white mold or early on in the season, phytophthora root rot, they will always hold their leaves on. Identify those fields. If you're out in your fields in the next week or two, watch them before complete leaves fall off. Look for plants that got the leaves. Identify those fields going into next year, so you know what you want to do for crop rotation. Mark that down so we can do control measures when you go back to soybeans. Another key, if you only see some individual plants here and there, cut open a plant. What we always say is you're going to see a small black, almost looks like a rat turd, inside the stem. That is where the fungus will grow from the next time you grow soybeans. So between the diseases, there's a few leaf diseases we've seen out there. It's basically nothing to be concerned with, not a lot you can do about. We saw a lot of bacterial blight. That normally affects the upper canopy of a plant. Normally it looks like a water-soaked lesion with like a halo yellow around it. The other one I saw a lot of is a Septoria brown spot, and that kind of has like a brown chlorosis, small specks on a lower canopy of a bean, and then it works its way up. A lot of that is going to be weather dependent, likes cool, moist conditions, which we've had most of the year. On the actual varieties of soybeans that we saw throughout the countryside that we're going to be handling this year at Country Visions, primarily in this Ripon, Fond du Lac, Malone area, are the Extend soybeans. We're sticking with that platform for this year yet, just because of proven yield and disease package. We're going to be looking at the enlist beans moving forward, and we're going to be looking at them in all of our plots, and especially our answer plots, and we're going to evaluate the yield performance along with the disease on those. But for the current year, we're looking at the Extend platform. The main one in this area that we drive home with the grower would be the soybean, would be Northrop King's S20 J5Xs and the Asgrow 20X9s. Those are our 2.0 beans. I like the NKs. They're kind of a put anywhere variety. Light soils, if you have disease pressure, that kind of stuff, just keep them off poorly drained soils. If you got a little bit poorly drained soils, I like the 20X9s of Asgrow. They handle that little bit tougher ground. And then the third one, at full maturity, if you got a little bit of that heavy soils and you know you have white mold, go with the Northrop King's 21W8Xs. Those are our main three full maturity beans that we are going to be moving forward at Country Visions for this year. Both Matt and John will talk about the respectable Asgrow and NK varieties, especially talking about some of the earlier maturities they also have to offer. One final thing I want to mention is keep an eye on these markets. The beans have been jumping nicely over the last few weeks. So if you can, I would really consider contracting a few beans here over the next few days, at least get some locked in. So that is kind of what we see going on in the beans, a little bit of some diseases going out there. Big time, watch this white mold, look for these plants holding their leaves. If you do see it, make sure you make those documentations, and if you can, keep these last ones a combine so we don't spread it to other fields. Any other questions, please reach out to one of us agronomists at Country Visions, and we'd feel free to come out and take a look at your fields. Thank you.